Greetings, fellow travelers. Welcome to my deep dive series, where I, MS Arthadian, dive into alternative tabletop role-playing games much like Reborn in Power, and what sets them apart from the TTRPG behemoth, Dungeons & Dragons. This series is an exploration into systems and settings that make up epic stories to be told. So sit back, relax, and let's dive in. Welcome to Arthadian Anthologies and my new deep dive series into tabletop RPGs. Today, I get to have on a returning guest who came on last year in Season 3 of my podcast. Now we're in Season 4. So, yes, Dicebag, if you'd like to introduce yourself to the audience.
Yeah, hi, I'm Dicebag. I guess I call myself artist, game designer, world builder, and occasional VTuber. That comes off the tongue pretty well now. Yeah, I've been doing it for so long. But yeah, I'm making a game called Crytures right now. It's actually my second game that would be published, but my first RPG.
Sweet. So before we actually get started into Crytures, I know we did do pretty much a deep dive from our last podcast together, and we got pretty deep into the actual character creation system of Crytures. But if you could actually explain to us about the backstory of what brought you to developing Crytures and all that fun stuff.
Oh, well, I guess a lot of my attempts at game design have been just because I've been frustrated with the way things are in the mainstream of those types of games. So, of course, here we've got Pokemon combined with Dungeons & Dragons is how I pitched this. But both of those games have been kind of frustrating me in recent days. But I started this one probably a few years ago, just dabbling with ideas. And at some point, I just decided to go all in on it and start, making the whole thing a real attempt at something.
Yeah, and you're an artist too, so like you've made like all the art, and it fits just the style of how it all is, and just I love like how well put together your world building and also just the game mechanics. It all kind of ties in together. Very nice and neat too, and I see that you've also started commissioning other artists too, using your own art kind of as a stepping block, like a stepping stone for them to kind of begin to make content that is expanding your own universe in a way.
Yeah, it's kind of a weird thing because I'm kind of a control freak in that regard. So
yeah,
and Crytures is such like an oddball mix of things that I've really had to put together and figure out how they all work. So I kind of have that idea of like, oh, it needs to be a certain way. So the way I've kind of allowed myself to go out and get help is just to like make the sketches myself and say like, okay, I want this. I just want it finished. And of course, I just got done making a sketch that I took way too far and spent way too much time on, and now I'm going to be awkward when I give them like this almost completely colored up thing but really sloppy, and I'm going to be like, okay, can you do this but better?
Yeah. That's great. Yeah. So the last time we talked about Crytures was over a year ago. I looked at the podcast. It was back in February of 2022 was the release date. So even before then was when we recorded it. But at this point, approximately how many Crytures have you made, and have there been any revisions to the character customization since then?
Oh, definitely. Oh, man. You know what? Let me open my folder with all the creature art in it.
Oh, perfect. Yeah, I know you have a lot more stuff.
Let's see. Sort by no, not by name. Let's sort by file type. Let's see. Okay. Here we go. We start with Arbo and we go all the way to Zorb. That's 108 images. Now, some of those are duplicates in separate versions, so probably pushing 100 creatures altogether.
Wow.
That I've actually drawn.
Is there a goal?
There's definitely more. The goal?
Okay.
It kind of depends on what kind of restrictions I'm going to be dealing with on the printer side.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Is the printer I intended to use for this has like a maximum of 200 pages for their biggest book.
Oh. Okay.
But I think I might try somebody else. But the general gist is that the creature codex, with all the creatures in it, of course, is going to be like half creatures and then half classes for the creatures. But creatures are probably going to take up a little more than half. So we're probably looking at 120, 130 or so creatures in the creature codex.
Oh, wow.
But then there's a whole deal with like mythic creatures and their agent creatures that I have been really fleshing out recently, and those are going to be in like a setting guide.
See,
so that's for like
that's pretty cool. Last time we went more so into like the character customization route, but we didn't get to go deep into the lore and the world building and all that stuff and the mythics. Yeah. So maybe we get to kind of dive down that route today.
Yeah, mythic creatures and like all the things involved with them are definitely one of the things I've been working on recently a lot. And that's part of because one of the things early on that I felt like I was lacking is like human enemies.
Yeah.
Like, who are the villains in creatures?
Team Rocket.
It gets kind of, it gets kind of boring if you're just going out and fighting off wild creatures and dungeons and stuff. And it's like, there's not really you need that kind of villain character in a RPG like this. So I originally had the plan with like a group called the Artisans, where basically like a cult kind of, or a secret society, and they were kind of the main thing going on. But I wanted to expand that, and I was wondering like, how could you deal with this this setting in a way that makes sense to have like, I don't know, like Sauron, like a power with an army or an actual civilization behind it, so that you've got more than one like kingdom that could be at odds with each other.
Yeah.
And one of the ways I thought about doing that was just, well, what if the bad guys had mythic creatures too? So, yeah, I've been thinking a lot about mythic creatures.
So
I guess I should explain.
Sorry, go ahead.
Go ahead.
Oh, okay. I know that inside, like, let's say inside Pokemon, they have like the legendary like creature, the legendary Pokemon, and usually you have inside the Pokemon games like one of the bad guys and stuff. They go after like the one Pokemon game that I played like nonstop was Ruby and like Emerald and Sapphire. That was my that was my favorite one, and I remember inside that one they were trying to unleash, you know, the like Groudon and Kyogre onto the world and all that stuff, and it just depends on which one you're playing. But are you kind of going like a similar route to that, or is this like are you trying to really like dive into like a little bit of a world building storytelling aspect with these? And are you making a module for this as well?
Oh, I'd love to do all that stuff. But it kind of depends on which group we're talking about, because recently I've been working on this like barbarian clan.
Yeah. Oh, I've seen some of the art for this. Yeah.
Yeah, they've been fun, but they're kind of already established, as like a power in the region. So they're going to be kind of like, they'll take the place of like your random bandit or brigand attacks and stuff like that until you get into like higher on levels and stuff.
Yeah.
So in their sense, not so much, but with the artisans that I was mentioned before, they're a lot more of that thing where they don't have a mythic creature yet, but they're looking for one. So that's an arc that you can follow throughout the story of where early on they're just kind of a menace. Then you find out they have an organizational structure and a leader and what that leader's doing. And now that leader's going for a mythic creature. And can you stop him, or do you have to get your own to stop him after he already gets that? So it's a whole thing that you could follow along there. You could definitely make a whole adventure path out of that.
That's cool. Do you is there like a pathway to like are mythic creatures like scattered throughout the world, like in how like require certain things to basically catch them, and or like because you have the reasons why you have creatures, like is the crystals and all that stuff. Actually, can you dive into that for those who don't know much about like how creatures and catching and all that stuff works out, binding crystals, I would say.
Yeah, just the general basis of everything.
Yeah,
it's just we're like in a distant relation to Earth here, and it's like the animals of our world have been mutated and adapted through magical energies, and they're all these dangerous magical creatures now. So humans have only been able to make it out of a dark age because they've found out how to bind and capture these creatures and control them to fight back against the dangers of the wilds, and use that to build up civilization. So with the conjurers, these are people that have specifically trained to bind and use creatures in combat mostly. How much do I need to go into? Do you want me?
I mean, as much as you want, honestly.
Oh, okay. Well, let me tell you about the astral pockets.
Oh, yes. Go ahead.
Go ahead with the astral pocket. All right. So one of the things I like to do with world building and game mechanics and stuff is to basically have an explanation for all the mechanics that would not make sense in the world. And with Pokemon, that's something I had to deal with, because what happens to the Pokemon when they're in the balls? That's the question everybody has. Well, in creatures, we answer that. What happens to the creature when it's in the crystal? Well, it dematerializes, and its spirit, its essence, goes into a pocket dimension called your astral pocket, which is basically like a dream world. This is where you go when you're dreaming. So conjurers that are fully trained are all lucid dreamers, and they can basically shape their astral pocket to their will, and they can use that as a place to bond and train with their creatures.
Yeah, I really like that concept. That's one of my favorite concepts about your entire world and all that. Because I remember when we were playing it, one of the things that I really wanted to do was just complete go and rest and then train inside my head constantly with the creatures I had just caught. We really need to get back on that. I really want to play again.
I haven't been able to do much with it yet, but
yeah, I know.
I have another guy that has more experience DMing that's interested in doing some, but I don't know how that's going to work. I would have had him with us last time, but he's Australian, and we already have difficulty with schedules.
Time zones is a pain.
Yes.
Yeah, because my main group, we have 2 UK residents, and just this past week we had a session, but it was the time change recently, so they didn't have a time change, and we had a time change, and it just screwed up our entire schedule because of that.
Oh.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, that sucks. Yeah, I saw the first episode of your new
the new
thing
age.
you're doing with them. Yeah.
Yeah.
I was bored at work and I'm like, oh wait, I should catch up on what this guy's doing before I go on his podcast.
Yeah, there's a lot of stuff that's been going on. It's actually been really, really fun. But back onto creatures. Let's go back onto creatures. So your main villain group, the artisans, are they? That's how you pronounce it, right? Artisans.
Yeah.
So are they? Is there a specific, like, what is their backstory, or can you give us a backstory about like what kind of started them and or flush them out a little bit? Like, I don't know, come up with something.
I honestly haven't fleshed them out too much, but basically the gist is that they're like lower class people who are trying to get ahead, and so they go towards like these people who have, you know, craftsman skills. That's why they're called the artisans, and they try to train them up and get them into their whole, you know, system of trying to establish a power base. And their general goal is to look for a way to create a mythic creature.
Oh,
Rather than going out and finding one. They want to build one for themselves.
So that's why they're artisans. They're kind of, are they conjurers themselves, or are they more like not really conjurers? They're just more like trying to figure out how to, I guess, build creatures. So like they'd be construct creatures, right? Like,
yeah.
Okay, because I know you have a bunch of different types of creatures, and one of those is the constructs, which are like, are they like the like kind of like how like you have like a what's it called, inside, I know in D&D they have the like constructs like golems and and stuff like that. Like mages can actually like create these kinds of things. So you can, is that possible to actually create creatures inside creatures?
Oh yeah. That's the entire point of the construct type, is to take that archetype from fantasy like D&D and kind of wedge it into the Pokemon style of systems. So one of the how do I put this? One of the weakest creatures I have is called Pet Rock, which is literally a pet rock.
Yep,
but
Pet Rock.
But it's animated. It's animated with magic, and you can use it as a creature, and it can fight. And you can, when you animate it, you paint a face on it and all this.
My gosh, I love the art.
Yeah, I do. Like, I am pleased with my idea of Pet Rock because it was so stupid and it turned out so well. Pet Rocks are fun, and all their metamorphoses too.
And for when you're constructing an actual creature, is it like a difficult process, or like how is the process in making constructs?
Oh, that just depends on the which one you're going for.
Okay.
I mean, I don't have like super detailed ideas of how these things function in the world. I just I'm going to leave that up to people to kind of describe themselves. I usually like to take a fairly hands-off approach to that.
Yeah.
But but the general idea is that the way magic works in creatures is that humans don't really have magic on their own. They have mana, which is basically just mental energy, and they can use that like in self magic, I guess you'd call it personal magic, like with the astral planes and the astral pockets and all that. But in order to actually like affect the world, they have to use like the essence of defeated creatures, because creatures are unstable. When you defeat them, they can't hold together. They basically dissolve into goo and when they die. So you harvest that. Now you can forge that into magic weapons. You can use it to cast spells. You can. What else? What would you do? Well, we'll make constructs. You can make that your own creatures with that.
Yeah, I like. Have you ran like a full on campaign with creatures? Like, even if it wasn't even like live streamed or anything like that. Like, have you actually ran a campaign, even if it wasn't even like 2 years or something?
Not all the way through, no, but I did go pretty far with my first group. But things have changed quite a bit since then with all the mechanics.
So have things changed more recently, like within the past year, like with mechanics in regards to like character creation and certain like combat maybe?
There's been a few tweaks here and there, but nothing really major, I don't think.
Okay. Because last time I played was, oh wow, that was like September, August or so of 2022, I think.
Somewhere around there, probably.
Yeah. I miss it. I remember we were going through the forest area and we were trying to. Well, we weren't even trying. We were supposed to be looking for people to save inside the forest, but we were going around just capturing creatures,
pursuing your own interests.
Yeah, as you know, TTRPG groups do.
Yeah, I spent way too much time coming up with like stupid little things for every single place. I should have just had a handful of encounters and kind of, did the illusion of choice thing a little bit there.
Yeah.
No, I had to give you a whole hex map, didn't I?
Yeah, we just went on our own route. Yeah, you kind of gave us free reign to just do what we're gonna do.
Yeah, well, part of that.
Go ahead.
One of the minor changes I made was part of that. It's just I felt it really tedious tracking all the stamina for every move you made on the map. So I was like, okay, I'm going to rework stamina a little bit. So it's a little different, but that's probably the biggest change I've made right now. It works a little more like mana now. Okay.
That's cool. And I forget, how did you recover mana and stamina inside the game?
Well, with mana, it was just sleep.
Okay, sleep.
You get a full night of sleep, you get all your mana back.
Okay.
You get less sleep, you get partial. But stamina, you got it by eating food.
Oh, okay.
So it was really tedious. Like, you go a few spaces and then, we're low on stamina, we better eat. Yeah, mark that off the sheet. It's not very interesting.
Resource management kind of stuff.
Yeah.
I find that like I'm not much of a resource manager when it comes to GMing or anything like that. Even though like there's times where it feels necessary to actually do resource management. But like I'm not a huge stickler on those kinds of things. I'm more so just like making sure that everyone's having fun, but also terrified for their lives. You gotta have a healthy mixture in there.
Yeah, I've definitely let my video game instincts go a little too far sometimes.
Honestly, it's not too bad, and so inside Creatures, like it was super fun, and also I remember like how dangerous the creatures were when we got into combat. I was actually the first time it was like, oh, this is not as easy as you might think it would be, and then I like kind of pulled back with that with basically going balls to the wall.
Yeah. Humans are not really built to go toe to toe with creatures. Although some of my own like personal solitaire playtests, I've been finding certain builds are, if you actually try to min-max a little bit, you wind up with humans that are a lot more powerful than I intend. So I've drawn back a little bit on some of the aspects there.
Okay, so you're trying to like put the creatures to the forefront rather than the characters themselves.
Right.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. Are you so in Pokemon that there's the whole league battles and stuff. It is. I know your world is more post apocalyptic, so it's like kind of building up. But are there like little like maybe illegal little battle arenas where you can fight creatures 1v1 kind of thing?
In my first campaign, like I don't know if it was like the second or third arc, I had my PCs go to the capital city in order for a festival that was happening. It was the what was it? It was the founding day where the king captured his mythic creature.
Oh wow!
It was a celebration of that, and they represented their hometown in a tournament there. So there is that aspect there, and I've also kind of assumed the idea that like nobles would probably have like would they probably be settling disputes through like creature battles and stuff like that in the noble class and their underlings. But it's not a huge aspect, but it is there. And there's also the idea that I kind of want to build creatures in a way that it can be played as also just a miniatures game. So even if you're not sitting down with the whole group, a couple people can still grab a team of creatures and go head to head with each other.
Interesting. So like you don't actually need to play like the role playing part of it. You could just take the creatures and then kind of fight against each other.
Yeah.
Interesting. So how let's go into combat. Let's go into combat of how this works. I know your system uses a dice pool, correct? I'm pretty sure it was a dice pool depending on the specific just like specific attributes or abilities that your character has, like speed and reflexes, and it uses D10s, correct?
Right. Yeah, we basically do everything World of Darkness style.
Okay.
So yeah, you'll be taking a couple of your stats, like a talent and a class, class for creatures, I guess. A talent or a skill, and add those together, and that's how many dice are in your dice pool. Then you roll all those, and each die that matches the target number or higher, that scores a success or a hit in combat, and that determines, how well you did. And that's something that can be gained a lot from the DM perspective, actually, I found. So if you have something that's relatively simple, it might just require like one success.
Yeah.
But if, say, you're like picking a lock, to use an obvious example, that might be a more complicated task and require more successes. But it's not like you don't lose anything if you fail it. You can try again.
Yeah.
But it eats up more time if you have to do it over and over and over again. And then, of course, if you go towards like, say, climbing a cliff, now that you got more stakes. Now, if you
mess up,
if you don't make the successes, you fall from a greater height.
Yeah.
So, or you slide down and catch yourself and take damage. So there's lots of ways you can kind of get degrees of success or failure through that system, I found.
Yeah, that's good to have, because I find that having specific degrees of success is good to have. When for example, like in Dungeons and Dragons, you have the DC, like the difficulty for it, and basically it's like you choose a number and then that's what the players need to meet. But maybe there's like multiple different numbers that need to be met and each number has a specific threshold that like something happens when you do succeed or fail underneath that specific number. Like if you're climbing up a wall, and you roll a 15, you succeed on a 14, but you didn't actually like full on succeed, which is like an 18, but you rolled a 15. You still are able to climb up, but maybe you're like probably like about to reach the top, and as you're about to reach the top, you look down, and then you're frightened, so you hold right there. And so like that kind of dynamic is what makes role-playing games so much fun. And sometimes you kind of lose that if you're not giving those little thresholds for players to reach.
Yeah. If it's just a straight pass or fail thing.
Yeah.
It loses a lot of the potential for nuance, and it leads to a lot of cases where, like, you know, you might have one roll that goes bad, and all of a sudden your character's dead.
Yeah. And also there's specific resources too. Like in D&D, there's not really many resources that a GM could utilize to like kind of make the players realize that something is going on. Like for example, you have stamina inside this. Like let's say when you are climbing up that wall and they don't necessarily reach the proper amount, you could actually say that their stamina is starting to deplete because they're getting so tired climbing up it, but they're still succeeding in climbing up it. But yeah,
that's another thing.
Yeah.
Sometimes I've been fleshing out this whole idea of like the way skill challenges would work and stuff, and one of the things is just if they need to do it more than once, well, that just consumes more of their resources. Mm-hmm. Like they have to spend extra stamina or mana depending on what they're doing in order to try again.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, I really enjoyed the nuance like inside that kind of like using specific resources for that and sometimes, you know, just like screwing with the players and making them pissed off about certain things. But you know, at certain points, it has to be at the right points. And sometimes the dice rolls just go with the story. For some reason, it just goes with the story for me. Whenever I'm GMing, like, I don't know how, but it just finds a way.
Yeah.
So, are there like any projects in the works that you're doing to expand upon creatures? Like I know you said that you're thinking about doing modules and other stuff, and you're also writing the creatures, like the creature codex. Is how far along are you on all of that, and when do you have a date planned of when that's going to be releasing?
Oh man,
I know all the major questions.
But I'm coming along. I've definitely got a lot more like pages fleshed out, and I'm trying to, like, a lot of the stuff that's going in the books is already up on the wikis. Like I got pages for a bunch of the creatures, so that's the kind of stuff you'll find there. But like, I'm not even sure how far I am through writing all those things. But I can, if I sit down and think about it, I can usually knock one out fairly easily. So it just depends on how often I can get the time to sit down and think about it.
And
a lot of that I just do that at work most of the time when I'm bored.
Yeah, I feel that. You're the only one that works on creatures? Like you're by yourself, kind of doing like making all the content and all that stuff, right? You don't have any,
basically
no partners in the background.
I've commissioned. Nope, it's mostly me. Just me and a few others that I can rope into like play testing with me occasionally.
Yeah, but I mean, play testing is like, you know, it's not necessarily.
But the content, that's all coming from my brain.
Yeah, I feel that. I feel that as well. I feel that as well. What is Creatures? How do you think that Creatures holds up when it comes to like homebrewing? Like if you were to if you were to just give the system to another developer and be like, hey, make your own creature. Like, how do you think that it's an easy it would be easy for them to just kind of read through it and make one on their own?
I would think so. I haven't like codified all the rules, but I do have very like standardized rules for myself when I'm designing creatures.
Mm-hmm.
And a lot of the stuff I put into it, I deliberately designed to be modular. So when it comes right down to it, like a creature, besides all the flavor and everything, it's one or two types. It's got stats that are spread across like a, let's see, there's a certain like stat, what's the word I'm looking for?
Like
there's a certain number of stats distributed across all their stats.
Okay.
And that depends
like points,
on
the different points that are distributed throughout.
Yeah.
Okay.
So those are kind of standardized. And then, of course, you've got the classes. Each creature has 3 classes. Well, except for some notable exceptions. Mm-hmm. So you just pick 3 classes. And that's basically your creature.
Okay.
Pick 3 classes and then draw something that goes along with it. And you've got a creature in the mechanic sense.
Interesting.
And of course, you can homebrew too.
Yeah.
Obviously, those are pretty standard. They've got 5 levels. Every odd level, well, at the first level you get 2 powers. At levels 3 and 5, you get extra powers that are more powerful, and then in between those you get just static bonuses. So it's pretty standardized all around and modular. So I think it's pretty easy to figure things out in that sense.
Yeah, go ahead.
The crafting system is like almost all just player driven. So it's basically homebrewing itself.
Yeah, crafting is because in D&D I don't think you don't really get much of a crafting system. I forget if there's a crafting system in the Dungeon Master's Guide, but
I think crafting is just kind of like, okay, you can do this, here you do it.
Yeah.
In D&D, and it generally has been the entire way through.
Yeah.
But I look at that and I think, well, what's the point of having game mechanics if you can't game the mechanics? So
exactly.
I wanted to make a system.
Yeah, I have a crafting system in Reborn in Power, and one of my players, his name's Dr. Cal. His character's name is Dr. Cal, and he has a series. And inside the one of the episodes, he goes and crafts a weapon because he's a crafter, and he figured out a build to exactly what you said, game the system, and he has like a full on crazy bonus where he can add multiple different dice to his crafting knowledge that he has, and once he does so, he has like one of his lowest checks is a 30, and 30 is like the max naturally that you could get, and that's like his lowest check for it. It's pretty fun to be able to craft inside games, and that's I found that like that is one of the hallmarks of having like a customizable system, and being able to just kind of do things as a player, but also like as the game master, you can actually let your players take part in building out the world that you're giving to them, whether it be through crafting like new gear inside the stuff, or even crafting creatures, and like that whole thing. Now you have like new creatures roaming about the world because your player is a conjurer, but also likes constructs and all. Yeah, and so they could like actually create constructs and new creatures and all that stuff, and put it into the game. And also, if they get so much into the actual system itself, they could end up being like, hey, I made a few creatures for you to incorporate into the world. See if you if you want to balance them out a bit, and then incorporate them into the world so that I can discover them and bind them as for myself. That's the kind of stuff that I love.
Yeah,
being able to really be a part of the world building and all that.
Yeah, I mean, you can't see it right now, but I'm grinning ear to ear, nodding along with everything you're saying. But yeah, that's a big thing I've thought about in Creatures, is like the arc of the story in Creatures, I feel like should be building towards the goal of at least one of the player characters binding their own mythic creature.
Yes.
And therefore basically establishing their own power base in the world itself. So that's in the actual the setting guide that I'm going to put out. That's where all the mythic creatures are going to be, both for people that already have them in the world, like the nobility and all that. But also the free ones that are still out there.
Do you
that
have
the players can chase down?
Do you have a list of the mythic creatures? Like how many are there out there currently? Like do you have that number, or are you still kind of working that out?
I'm not even sure how big the world is right now.
Okay.
But we can talk more about mythic creatures, though.
Yes. I would love to hear more about mythic creatures.
Right now, I've only got like 3 designed right now. Mm-hmm. There's a lot that goes into them, I found, because of all the lore I've been adding on and all that. But the basic gist is that mythic creatures are basically kind of a combination of like the Shinto gods, in that they like oversee like a region, and they're like in a supernatural creation of the land itself. Mm-hmm. And it also ties into like the divine right of kings, that you like the idea that royalty rules at the behest of God. Mm-hmm. So these mythic creatures all rule over a certain area of land. So when somebody goes out and defeats them and binds them, well, now that person is the ruler of that land. Mm-hmm. So each little pocket, each region and geographic landmark, even sometimes you might see like mythic creatures that claim a river as their domain. So each of those will have their own mythic creatures. So there could be thousands, millions of mythic creatures, depending on how big the world is. Okay. It's just as big as you need it to be.
Interesting.
And then there's definitely going to be things that kind of break the rules as well.
Yeah. Are you planning out a pantheon of mythic creatures in a way?
Not really. Okay. They're all going to be like very localized. Okay. In terms of their influence. I want to try and keep the power level kind of down to earth. Okay. In general.
And
but there's a
Do they have specific types to them as well? Like do they take the same creature types that you have?
They already have their own types and everything. Okay. In fact, one of the things that sets them apart from other creatures is that they have a 4th class. Oh. So they're a little more powerful in that regard. Plus, they have higher stats just from the mechanics sense. Mm. But I've also been working on like ideas for role-playing things that they can be used for. And one of the ideas I came up with was the concept of like divine inspiration. So when they're in the astral pocket of their conjurer, their little they're not as docile. They have their own things that they do. So like one of the characters I've got that's the Duke of Root Run, who has the mythic creature called the Verdant King.
Oh.
So I've described his astral pocket out, and I left a specific spot about the Verdant King, saying that the Verdant King has like his own chambers, and the Duke has not been able to find a way to get in there and see what it is.
Oh.
So it's like the mythic creatures, even when you bind them, they have their own little secrets and stuff, and their own little drives and motivations that could affect you later on, and their own little taboos that you have to take into account. Otherwise, they might get mad at you. Like the Verdant King likes flowers. You don't want to step on a flower when you've got the Verdant King bound to you. He might not take kindly to that.
That's really cool. Oh, wow.
Yes. So there's also the concept of the agent creatures. So each mythic creature also has basically smaller, weaker creatures that they can spawn.
Oh.
So for the Verdant King, he has this little guy called Creebean. It's basically like a bean guy with a leaf spear and a leaf helmet and a leaf shield. And he just he can grow these things from the ground, and they do his bidding. So when they're out in the wild, you might find these agent creatures popping up anytime somebody gets a little too rowdy in the wilderness. But when they're bound by a conjurer, well, now that conjurer can make these things themselves. And so as a way to establish their power base, one of the things they'll do is they'll establish their own like orders of conjurers, like an order of knights or something. And they'll gift these agent creatures to the members of that order, and they kind of create like let's see, how did I describe it? When you have these creatures bound to you, it feels like you get the sense that somebody's watching you all the time, because it's like a direct link to the mythic creature itself.
Oh.
So that's something like the higher level guys in like the barbarian clans I'd mentioned earlier. They're going to have agent creatures like this.
Interesting.
And then the Viridian Order, which I've talked about a lot on my social medias and stuff. I've been working on them a lot too. And, they have their Creebeans and their metamorphoses that get bigger and bigger. So those guys are kind of intrinsically bound to the Duke. So
Arthur Oakthorn.
Arthur Oakthorn, right. So they've got their own kind of enforcement mechanism for fealty to the royalty, you might say.
I really like how World Anvil has you've designed World Anvil so that you could just go in and just start looking at everything. Everyone should definitely go check out the creatures link that is found in the description of this episode. So yes, please.
There's a lot of information there, yeah,
and you
a lot that I haven't put up yet.
You have is most of your stuff on the Subscribe Star? Because I know I'm still subscribed to you.
Honestly, I think I might just cancel the Subscribe Star. I haven't been updating it, and
yeah, that was my problem.
Been
with
really
it.
Coming on.
That was my problem with it, is that I whenever I had the Subscribe Star, I would forget to update it, and it's like
yeah. At this point, I feel like putting things on Subscribe Star, you have to like, to make it worthwhile, you kind of have to put a delay on all your content, putting it out in social media.
Yeah.
So you can give the subscribers a little extra ahead of time. But it's like, I kind of just want to post it right now.
Exactly.
Before I forget about it.
Exactly, yeah.
So
you have all the,
I think I might.
You have all the pages on Subscribe Star I see here. Right?
Yeah, I think so.
The Clayman and the Metamorphosis for that one. I love the Golem. The Golem one. The art for it looks so good. Oh, and also the purple one. It's taking a second for it to load the image. But yes, yeah, the Xylem. That's the one. It's
Asylum.
It's a psionic construct.
Those guys were fun.
That's pretty cool. Yeah, and you have a bunch of art, literally just like straight up a bunch of art that shows like the world and the different characters and how like things are, and that's some of the stuff that I want that I'm kind of lacking inside my universe, because like having just being able to like showcase how certain characters are able to do certain things, that's it allows for players to be able to visualize what they could do inside the universe. Right. And I mean,
you're right, because
you have it, because you're the artist and all that stuff. That's what I lack.
Yeah, there's so many rabbit holes we could go down. Like my last game I tried to make, it was a more realistic art style I wanted to use, but I'm not that good at that stuff. So this is my element. This more anime style, cartoony stuff. Yeah, I can do this.
Yeah, like
and I am doing this all the time.
I could see it, and it's pretty cool. Like it's kind of like how I am with my universe, but I'm like more, I'm more just playing my game as much as I can with other people and trying to record every single thing I do, so that it's just like it's content that I could put out there. But like, sometimes I feel like I shouldn't release certain it's like, sometimes I feel like I shouldn't release the like audio, because I need some kind of visual element for the audio. And then like when I do have visual elements for stuff, like I do live streams now for my game, but like it's harder because I don't have art, or like sometimes it's just more just showing me kind of doing the actions while you just hear voices in the background and all that. So it's interesting, but I especially love like some of the art, especially the ones where like the one piece that you have where it shows the binding crystal. I forget what the name of the squid like creature.
Toxilus.
Yes. Yeah. And like you have the binding crystal, and showing how that works and how like a creature binding takes place. That's really cool.
That's definitely something I've wanted to get out there.
Yeah.
Because how do you describe that?
Mm-hmm.
That's the problem I always have. How do you describe that?
Yeah,
I can draw it.
I remember in my early days of GMing, like one of the things that I couldn't, I was very bad at being able to describe like actual scenes or actual like parts of what is going on in the world. I still struggle with it because my vocabulary isn't the best. So like I'll have a word on the tip of my tongue and I can't figure it out, and then I pause. I'm just like But back when I first started GMing, I would take images from Pinterest and be like, "This is what you see," and then I'll give them what it is, what they see. But like when you have depictions of what you see inside your universe, you can then also describe it. Like how I would describe a binding crystal at this point from seeing the art that you made is you take the binding crystal that has like this blue aura around it, and then it begins to break apart into small fragmented pieces that begin to swirl around the creature with energy kind of getting tied and tethered together, and then binding the creature and then bringing it in, and then reemerging into that crystal again. and that.
Yeah, that's a pretty fair description.
Yeah.
I didn't draw an entire comic of the process, but you got the gist.
Yeah. Yeah. I from this entire conversation, I've been thinking of like ideas of how like I would run a mini creatures campaign, and I honestly, if you'd want, I'd be down to like incorporate, like maybe have like a one shot and have my players all make creatures characters, and we do like a one shot on my game with like, or not my game, but like with creatures. I've been wanting to actually
on your podcast,
on my podcast
stream.
and stream and whatever it is we do, but like, you know, being able to like play multiple different games and all that stuff, and I enjoy that stuff, and I feel like that'll be fun.
I would absolutely welcome it if other people wanted to do a creatures shot at DMing that for themselves or whatever. If you can't find the information that you need, just hit me up and I will give it to you.
Okay.
Because I'm not sure what rules are out there or not, and I've got things in documents and Google Docs, and some of it's in PNGs. I don't know. Just let me know. If you need something, I'll get it to you.
I believe I still have the Creatures Beginner module. I'm not sure if anything.
Oh, that thing's probably outdated.
Okay.
I think I've changed a few of the mechanics since then.
Yeah. I'd get a kick out of it. So one of the things that I'm planning on doing, which is kind of like why I've taken this journey into like deep diving into other like people's TTRPGs and all that stuff, is that what I want to do is I want to start actually making content that kind of stems from my universe, but inside other people's systems. And it's like like being able to take, for example, inside my universe is there's rune forgers, and they forge these like energy stones that like they like have like energy within them, and then you're able to use runic abilities, and those like you could take that stone that you forged and then like move your finger in a specific way on the stone, and then it creates like this energy blade, and it's for a specific type of energy or something like that. And then like imagine one of these rune forgers going through some kind of weird portal and then ending up on the creature's world that no longer they have the mana within them to be able to kind of forge runes, but actually the forging of the runes ends up like connecting to certain creatures or something like that, and like it has like a specific class to it that like then like you could go and like find like constructs that like kind of like do certain things and all that stuff. I just like think of like all the different ways that I like it could tie over to different universes and other people's like like RPG systems and how they work. And that's like something I've always thought about, and that's also a reason why I asked you about like how like homebrewing works inside your game, and like if you think it's like easy enough, and because like that's something that's a goal of mine, is to be able to start creating inside other people's systems as well, so that it's not just mine, and I want to be able to be versatile in other systems, so that it's because the whole D&D OGL debacle made me realize like, hey, like we can't just stick with one system. It has to be like we have to have multiple. Like this needs to be a collaborative effort and all that.
There needs to be alternatives.
Yes. Yeah, alternatives.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Which speaking of in that same vein, I've also contemplated the idea of like a sci-fi branch of creatures.
Ooh.
Where you'd be traveling between planets and you'd have like alien creatures in that sense. But that's a very distant idea. That's just kind of a general gist of something I'd like to try someday.
That sounds like fun. Yeah.
That actually, I think I thought of that while I was playing No Man's Sky. Is that's an interesting game. They actually let you, like, basically capture the wild animals, but there's nothing you can do with them, really.
They're kind of like pets.
And I thought, yeah, they're like pets. And I thought, you know what would be cool? What if they were Pokemon? I want to fight them.
That would be cool. That would be really cool. Yeah, that's definitely something that you should definitely do, I think. And if you do need help on coming up with concepts and all that stuff, I love building like sci-fi worlds and different types of concepts. Right now I'm having to plan out a full on I would say galaxy map, but it's more like a full on, I don't know, like a detailed map of different worlds in which all the players can actually explore inside my universe, and then each world will have certain missions that they have to do on that world, and it's just going to be like a huge project that I have to do. But yes. Anyways, with that, where can people find Crytures? What are the main places that people can find Crytures? And are there? I guess we'll find out. We'll find out later. But like, is there what's the next thing on the docket for Crytures? Is there a plan like of putting the Creature Codex out there like soon? Like, do you have like a certain amount of months or anything like that?
I'm just going where my heart takes me right now. I basically have an idea of where I need to end up, and I'm just picking away at each thing at a time. Usually I'm busy putting out like new creature designs or something. So you can go to, let's see, what am I on these places? Usually you can find me on social media, if I'm on it, as @Dicebaggery. That's the handle that's usually on there. I think I'm on Instagram as that, and Twitter, and Minds, if you're on there.
And you're also on YouTube and the other. Yeah,
YouTube, Twitch, Rumble, Odysee. Odysee is where I'm biggest at.
Yeah.
The others are kind of They're there because they're mainstream.
Yeah, exactly.
But other than that,
you stream art streams every weekend?
Usually every Friday. No, not Friday. Saturday. Saturday night, I'm usually drawing creatures on stream.
Yeah.
And those places all have like links to the wiki somewhere on them. Usually I include links whenever I can. And if you want to go to the wiki, there's the introduction video there that kind of runs down the basis of creatures. And there's a link to join the newsletter, which I'm trying to grow. And I'm putting out like 2 emails a month on updates with that. One is just an art dump. The other is going to be like an actual rundown of things I've been working on.
Newsletter, okay.
Right.
Perfect.
Through email. Building an email list.
Perfect.
Getting my inner marketing guy out.
we all have to figure that out as creators and all that stuff.
Yeah.
But with that, thank you for coming back on, and we should definitely get a creature session in at some point within the next few months, because I've been itching for a creature.
Well, thanks for having me. It's always nice to be on these things.
Perfect. And hopefully maybe in the future you can try out Reborn in Power. I know it's a bit more complex than creatures, but we'll figure it out. We'll figure it out.
I'll have to find time to read up on it. I haven't seen anything for a while.
Yeah. Sorry. I haven't been posting very much.
I'll try to catch up on your play sessions.
Yes.
In the meantime.
Yes. Well, thank you. Thank you for coming on, and thank you all for listening to this next deep dive, and hopefully you enjoyed it, and I hope that you eventually become a conjurer yourself and explore the world of creatures. And if that comes to you, may you be reborn in power. Thank you for listening to this dive into creatures. Be sure to check out Dicebag Games at Dicebaggery to receive the beginner module for creatures. All links will be found in the description of this episode. If you like what you're hearing and want to support, you can subscribe at arthadiananthologies.com/subscribe. A link will also be found in the show notes below. As always, be safe, stay safe, and if death comes to you, may you be reborn in power.